The same kitchen table, the same scratched oak surface where my mother used to serve Sunday dinners, where I'd done homework as a kid, where 10 years ago my entire world collapsed. And here I was again, staring at the familiar water ring stains while my parents sat across from me like defendants awaiting sentencing. My name is Vivian, and I should have known this day would come. Vivian, sweetheart, we need to talk. My mother Margaret's voice carried that familiar, manipulative tremor she'd perfected over the years, the same tone she'd used when she wanted something from me as a teenager, except now her desperation was showing around the edges. I set down my coffee cup and waited. 10 years in business had taught me the power of silence. My father Richard cleared his throat, his pride visibly wrestling with necessity. "We're in a bit of a financial bind. Define bit," I said. Margaret's hands fluttered to her pearl necklace, the one she'd worn to Annabelle's wedding. "The bank called yesterday. We have 60 days before—" She couldn't say it. "Before foreclosure," Richard finished, the word dropping like a stone. I nodded slowly, letting the moment stretch. The irony was so perfect it almost hurt. Almost. "We know things have been strained between us," Margaret continued, "but family is family. We raised you. Stop." The word came out sharper than I intended. "Let's not rewrite history." The silence that followed was deafening. I could practically hear them both thinking the same thing. She's going to make this difficult. Good, they had no idea. "How much do you need?" I asked. Hope flickered in Margaret's eyes. 80,000 would cover the back payments and give us some breathing room. 80,000. I almost laughed. 10 years ago, when I was 21 and facing my own eviction, I'd beg them for $3,000. $3,000 that could have kept me off the streets, could have saved me from sleeping on couches and eating ramen for months. "The Family First Fund," I said quietly. Both of them froze. "Remember that, Dad? Your brilliant idea. Every month we'd all contribute to this emergency fund for family members in crisis." I leaned back in my chair. I was so proud to be part of it, putting in $50 a month from my part-time job, even when I could barely afford groceries. "Vivian," Richard started. "No, let me finish. Because I remember sitting right here in this exact spot when I found out my landlord was evicting me. I remember asking, no, begging for help from that fund. The fund I'd been paying into for 3 years. Margaret's face had gone pale. That was different. Annabelle's wedding was more important than your daughter having a roof over her head. I kept my voice level, professional. $60,000, gone, every penny of it, for flowers and a dress and a party that lasted one night. "We explained this to you," Richard said, his jaw tight. Annabelle needed a fairy tale wedding, and I needed to not be homeless. Guess which one you chose?" The kitchen fell silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. The same refrigerator they'd refused to let me raid when I was surviving on crackers and hope. "We thought you'd figure it out," Margaret whispered. "You were always so capable, so independent. Independent." I tasted the word. "Is that what you called it when I slept on my friend's couch for 4 months? When I showered at the gym because I couldn't afford my own place? When I ate once a day so I could save money for a security deposit?" "You never told us it was that bad," Richard said. I stared at him. "I called you 17 times. 17! You sent me to voicemail every single time." Margaret was crying now, but I felt nothing. Those tears had run dry years ago. We made mistakes, she said. But we're family. We're asking for your help now because we know you've done well for yourself. Your business. My business that I built from nothing, after you threw me away. We never threw you away. No? Then what would you call it? I stood up, smoothing my skirt. But you know what? You're right about one thing. Family is family. Hope bloomed on their faces. I'll consider helping you, I said, watching relief wash over them. Let me think about it and get back to you. I walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and Mom, next time you want to guilt someone about family loyalty, maybe don't wear the necklace you bought with my rent money. I left them sitting at that table, probably thinking they'd won, that their capable, independent daughter would swoop in and save them like she always did. They had no idea what was coming. In my car, I pulled out my phone and typed a quick text to Lucas. It's time. Draw up the papers. His response came immediately. Are you sure about this? I looked back at the house where I'd grown up, where I'd learned that love was conditional and family was a lie. Absolutely. The memory hit me as I drove away from their house. Lindsay's cramped studio apartment, the pull-out couch that had been my bed for 4 months, the smell of instant coffee and desperation that had clung to everything I owned. You can't keep living like this, Lindsay had said, finding me counting quarters on her kitchen counter at 2 a.m. It's temporary, I'd whispered, trying not to wake her neighbors, just until I get back on my feet. But we both knew I was drowning. I pulled into my office parking lot and sat for a moment, remembering how it felt to have nothing. My phone buzzed with a notification, Annabelle's Instagram story. Even now she was posting from some expensive brunch spot, mimosa in hand, designer sunglasses reflecting the California sun. 10 years ago, while I was rationing granola bars, she'd been posting daily updates from her Bali honeymoon, crystal blue waters, 5-star resorts, couples massages. The wedding fund had paid for all of it. Vivian? Lucas appeared at my car window. You okay? I rolled it down. Just remembering. The couch days? The couch days. He knew the story, how I'd shown up at his law office, fresh out of law school then, with $50 and a desperate need for someone to review my lease. How he'd taken pity on me and helped me understand my rights. How that small kindness had grown into friendship, then partnership when I started my business. Come on, he said. Let's get those papers ready. In his office, I sat across from his desk while he pulled up contract templates on his computer. The same position I'd been in years ago, except now I was the one with power. Standard loan agreement? He asked. Nothing standard about this. I pulled out my phone and showed him the numbers I'd calculated during the drive. 12% interest, compounded monthly, full payment due in 18 months, house as collateral. Lucas's eyebrows shot up. That's aggressive. It's legal, barely. He leaned back in his chair. Vivian, I have to ask? Are you sure this is what you want? Once we do this, there's no going back. I thought about Lindsay finding me crying in her bathroom that first week, when the reality of my situation had finally hit, how she'd held me while I sobbed about feeling abandoned by the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. You know what Lindsay told me that night? I asked Lucas. What? She said, sometimes the family that matters most is the one you choose. She was right. Lucas nodded slowly. She usually is. My parents chose Annabelle over me, They made that choice with their eyes wide open. Now they get to live with the consequences. And if they can't pay? Then they lose the house, same way I lost mine. My phone rang. Lindsay's name flashed on the screen. Hey, I answered. Please tell me you're not about to do something that'll land you in therapy for the next decade. I laughed, despite myself. How did you? Margaret called me, crying, asking if I could talk sense into you about helping them. Lindsay's voice was dry. I told her I'd helped you plenty when they wouldn't. What did she say to that? She hung up on me. Shocking, right? Through Lucas's office window, I could see the city skyline. 10 years ago, I'd stared at those same buildings from Lindsay's fire escape, wondering if I'd ever amount to anything. Now I owned a logistics company with 43 employees and offices in 3 states. Lindsay, do you remember that night you found me looking through job listings at 3 a.m.? The McDonald's application. Yeah, I was ready to take anything. Anything to get off your couch and stop being a burden. You were never a burden. But I felt like one, every single day, and you know what the worst part was? What? Seeing Annabelle's posts, her perfect life funded by money that should have kept me housed. While I was applying to flip burgers, she was getting couples massages in Bali. Lucas had stopped typing and was listening to my side of the conversation. So yeah, I continued, I'm going to help them, the same way they helped me. Lindsay was quiet for a moment. You know I'll support whatever you decide. I know. But, Viv, don't let this consume you. Don't become them. After I hung up, Lucas and I worked in silence for an hour, crafting the most ironclad loan agreement his legal mind could devise, every clause designed to protect my interests, every term calculated to ensure compliance. It's done, he said finally, printing the documents. I picked up the contract and flipped through it. 12 pages of legal language that boiled down to one simple truth. My parents would finally understand what it meant to be at someone else's mercy. They'll sign it, I said. How can you be sure? Because they're desperate, and desperate people don't read the fine print. Lucas gathered the papers into a folder. When do you want to present this? I checked my watch. Tomorrow. Let them sweat for one more night. And if they refuse? I smiled, remembering the fear in Margaret's eyes when she'd said the word foreclosure. They won't. Annabelle showed up at my office the next morning without an appointment. My assistant buzzed me while I was reviewing the loan documents one final time. Your sister is here? She said. She's insistent. I almost smiled. Send her in. Annabelle swept through my door like she owned the place. Designer handbag clutched tight. Her usual confidence slightly frayed around the edges. She'd always been beautiful, the kind of effortless pretty that made people stop and stare. But today she looked tired. Nice office, she said, glancing around at my corner suite. Very corporate. It pays the bills. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. What can I do for you, Annabelle? She perched on the edge of the seat like she might need to run. Mom called me. She's worried about you. Worried about me? She thinks you're angry about old stuff, ancient history. Annabelle waved her hand dismissively. I told her you're probably just busy. Successful people are always busy, right? I leaned back in my chair. Ancient history. Is that what we're calling it? Viv, come on. That was 10 years ago. We were kids. You were 29. I was 21. Neither of us were kids. Annabelle's perfect composure cracked slightly. Look, I know things were hard for you back then. Hard? I laughed. Annabelle, I was homeless. You had Lindsay's couch. For 4 months. 4 months of wondering if my own family gave a damn whether I lived or died. She shifted uncomfortably. We knew you'd figure it out. You always do. Right. Because I'm the capable one. The independent one. The one who doesn't need help. I stood up and walked to my window. Tell me, what did you need the $60,000 for again? Remind me. My wedding. Your flowers cost more than my rent. It was my wedding day. Annabelle's voice rose. It was supposed to be perfect. And it was, wasn't it? Perfect flowers, perfect dress, perfect honeymoon, all funded by money that was supposed to help family members in crisis. Annabelle was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. I didn't know how bad things were for you. Because you didn't ask. I was planning a wedding. Do you know how stressful that is? I turned to face her. Do you know how stressful being evicted is? She looked away. I thought Mom and Dad would help you separately. I didn't know they'd used all of it. They didn't use all of it, Annabelle. You did. For centerpieces and a dress you wore once. That's not fair. No, it's not. Nothing about this has been fair. Annabelle stood up abruptly, pacing to my bookshelf. You want to know something? You want to know the truth? Please. I hated that wedding. She spun around to face me. Every minute of it. The pressure, the expectations, everyone watching me like I was performing in some play I never auditioned for. But you got your fairy tale, did I? Her laugh was bitter. You think my life is perfect? You think being married to Isaiah is some dream come true? I studied her face. For the first time since she'd walked in, she looked genuinely vulnerable. What's wrong with your marriage? Everything. She slumped back into the chair. He's controlling, demanding. He monitors my spending, questions every purchase. I can't even buy coffee without him asking why I need it. So, divorce him. With what money? I signed a prenup that leaves me with nothing if I leave, and I have no job skills, no career. I've been a trophy wife for 10 years. The irony wasn't lost on me. So you're trapped. Completely. She looked up at me with something that might have been envy. You know what I think about sometimes? I think about how brave you were, starting over with nothing, building all this. She gestured around my office. Brave? I sat back down. I wasn't brave. I was desperate. Same thing, sometimes. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Annabelle leaned forward. Viv, I need to tell you something. About the wedding fund. What about it? It wasn't supposed to be just for me. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. Originally, Mom and Dad said it would be split between us. Half for your education, half for my wedding. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. What? But when you got evicted, and they'd already promised me the money, they made me swear not to tell you. They said it would just make you feel worse. They lied to me. They lied to both of us. Tears were forming in her eyes. I wanted to tell you so many times, but they said it would destroy the family. I stared at her, processing this new betrayal. Not only had they chosen her over me, they'd actively deceived me about it. Why are you telling me this now? Because I'm scared. She wiped her eyes. Isaiah's been talking about cutting me off completely, and if Mom and Dad lose the house... You'll have nowhere to go. Just like you did. I picked up the loan documents from my desk. Well, Annabelle, looks like you're about to learn what I learned 10 years ago. What's that? Sometimes family isn't there when you need them most. Her face went pale. What do you mean? I smiled. You'll find out soon enough. The next afternoon, I walked into my parents' living room with Lucas at my side, his briefcase in hand. Margaret had set out her good china, the same set she'd refused to let me use for my college graduation party, because it was too special for a casual gathering. Vivian, sweetheart. She rushed over to hug me, but I stepped back. This is Lucas, my attorney. He'll be handling the paperwork. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Richard's face hardened. Attorney? We're family, Vivian. We don't need lawyers. Actually, Dad, we do. I sat down on the couch where I'd once curled up to watch movies as a kid. Any financial agreement requires proper documentation. Lucas opened his briefcase and pulled out the contract. I've prepared a loan agreement that should meet everyone's needs. Margaret sat down heavily, her hands shaking slightly as she reached for her teacup. Of course. We just appreciate you helping us, sweetheart. Let's go over the terms, Lucas said, spreading the papers on the coffee table. The loan amount is $80,000, as requested. Perfect, Richard said quickly. When can we? The interest rate is 12%, compounded monthly. Silence. 12%! Margaret's voice was barely a whisper. That's highway robbery, Richard snapped. Credit cards don't even charge that much. Credit cards don't require a house as collateral, I said calmly. Collateral? Margaret set down her teacup with a clatter. Lucas continued reading. The full amount, plus accrued interest, is due in 18 months. Failure to pay results in immediate foreclosure proceedings. 18 months. Richard stood up, his face red. That's impossible! We need at least 5 years to... You need 60 days to avoid foreclosure now, I interrupted. 18 months is generous. Margaret was crying again. Vivian, please! We're your parents. We raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head. Until you didn't. That was different. How? I leaned forward. How was it different, Mom? You were an adult. You could take care of yourself? I was 21 and working part-time at a bookstore. What part of that screamed financially stable to you? Richard began pacing. This is ridiculous. You're our daughter. You should want to help us. I am helping you. I'm offering you a loan when no bank will. At loan shark rates. At market rates for high-risk borrowers with poor credit and no income. I picked up the contract. Which is exactly what you are. Lucas cleared his throat. There are a few additional clauses. No late payments will be accepted. Any missed payment triggers immediate default, and the borrowers waive their right to bankruptcy protection regarding this debt. You can't be serious, Richard said. Completely serious. I stood up and walked to the mantelpiece, where family photos still included me. Pictures from before they decided Annabelle's happiness was worth more than my housing. You know what's funny? 10 years ago, I sat in this exact room and begged you for $3,000. $3,000. Do you remember what you told me? Margaret wiped her eyes. Vivian, you said, life is about learning to stand on your own 2 feet. You said, we can't enable you by bailing you out every time things get tough. I turned to face them. Remember that, Dad. Richard's jaw was clenched so tight I thought it might crack. That was different. No, it wasn't. You taught me that family doesn't help family, that everyone has to figure it out on their own, that asking for help is a sign of weakness. I walked back to the couch. I learned that lesson very well. We made a mistake, Margaret sobbed. We were wrong. We should have helped you. Yes, you should have, but you didn't, and now you want me to do what you wouldn't do for me. We're desperate. So was I. Lucas tapped the contract. The terms are non-negotiable. You can sign now or we can leave and you can deal with the bank. Richard looked at the papers like they were written in blood. This will ruin us. Only if you don't pay it back. The payments will be over $3,000 a month. Then you better find a way to make $3,000 a month. I sat back down. I did it with a lot less. Margaret reached for the pen with trembling hands. We don't have a choice. There's always a choice, Mom. You taught me that too. She signed first, her signature shaky but legal. Richard stared at the document for a long moment. This is blackmail, he said quietly. No, Dad, this is business. This is what you taught me about standing on my own 2 feet. He signed. Lucas collected the papers and handed them copies. The first payment is due in 30 days. Congratulations, you just avoided foreclosure. As we walked to the door, Margaret called after me. Vivian, wait. Please, we love you. We've always loved you. I paused with my hand on the doorknob. Love isn't a feeling, Mom. It's a choice. It's what you do when someone needs you most. We're trying to make it right now. No, I said, opening the door. Now you're just trying to save yourselves. Outside, Lucas shook his head. That was brutal. It was justice. Same thing? I looked back at the house where I'd learned that love was conditional and family was a lie. Today, it is. The phone started ringing at 7 a.m. the next morning. First my Aunt Carol, then Uncle Mike, then cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Word had spread through the family like wildfire. Vivian, what the hell is wrong with you? Carol's voice was shrill through the speaker. Charging your own parents 12% interest? Have you lost your mind? I was in my kitchen, making coffee and watching the sunrise. Good morning to you too, Carol. Don't you good morning me. Margaret called me crying last night. Crying, your own mother. She's cried before. She'll cry again. How can you be so cold? These are the people who raised you. These are the people who threw me out when I needed help. I took a sip of coffee. But I'm sure they didn't mention that part. That was years ago. You need to let it go. I did let it go, right into a legally binding contract. Carol hung up on me. Uncle Mike called 10 minutes later. Vivian, I'm disappointed in you. Family doesn't treat family like this. You're right, Mike. They don't. So, why did my parents treat me like this 10 years ago? That's ancient history. Funny how it's ancient history when it's my pain, but a current crisis when it's theirs. You're being vindictive. I'm being consistent. By noon, I'd received 17 calls from various relatives, all with the same message. I was heartless, cruel, and had forgotten where I came from. None of them mentioned that they'd all been invited to Annabelle's wedding, the one funded by my rent money, and not one had questioned where I was. Tony, the family banker, called around lunch. Vivian, I need to talk to you. If this is about the loan, it's about the family. Everyone's talking. Your parents are devastated. They'll survive. They're resourceful people. Look, I know there's history here, but maybe we can work something out. Modify the terms, extend the timeline. The terms are final, Tony. 12% is predatory. It's legal. Legal doesn't make it right. I set down my sandwich. You know what wasn't right? Watching my parents drain a family emergency fund for a party while I was facing eviction. You know what wasn't right? Being ignored by every single person in this family when I needed help. You know what wasn't right? Having to sleep on a friend's couch for 4 months because my own family decided I wasn't worth $3,000. Tony was quiet for a moment. I didn't know it was that bad. Because none of you cared enough to ask. We care now. No, you're scared now. There's a difference. That evening, Annabelle showed up at my apartment. She looked worse than she had in my office. Dark circles under her eyes, her usually perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. We need to talk, she said, pushing past me into my living room. Make yourself at home. She spun around to face me. Isaiah found out about the loan. How? Tony told him. They play golf together. She collapsed onto my couch. He's furious. He says if I can't even manage my own family's finances, how can he trust me with anything? Sounds like a charming husband. He's threatening to cut off my credit cards, all of them. He says I need to learn fiscal responsibility. I poured myself a glass of wine. Want some? I can't afford wine anymore. It's my wine, in my apartment. She nodded gratefully as I handed her a glass. Viv, I'm scared, really scared. If he cuts me off completely, you'll be broke. I'll be exactly where you were 10 years ago. I sat down across from her. Except you won't have a family emergency fund to fall back on. That's not funny. It's not supposed to be. Annabelle took a large gulp of wine. I called Mom today. She's not eating. Dad's been locked in his study for hours, trying to figure out how to make the payments. They'll figure it out. They're resourceful people. Stop saying that. Why? It's what they said about me. This is different. How? I leaned forward. How is this different, Annabelle? Because they're old. They can't just start over. Well, I was 21 with no money, no connections, and no family support. They're in their 50s with a house, retirement savings, and decades of work experience. If anyone can figure it out, it's them. Annabelle set down her wine glass with shaking hands. You really hate us, don't you? I don't hate you. I just don't trust you. There's a difference. We're family. Family is what you make it, and you all made it very clear that I wasn't really part of yours. My phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. First payment due in 3 weeks. Are you ready for this? I showed Annabelle the message. Your parents have 3 weeks to come up with their first payment. $3,247. Her face went white. They don't have that kind of money. Then they better find it. What happens if they can't pay? I finished my wine and looked at her. Really looked at her. The golden child who'd never wanted for anything, who'd never had to choose between food and rent, who'd never known what it felt like to be abandoned by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. Then they'll learn what I learned, Annabelle. That sometimes the people you count on most are the ones who let you down the hardest. She started crying then, quiet tears that she tried to hide behind her wine glass. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry for everything. I know you are, but sorry doesn't pay the rent, and it doesn't change the contract. So what happens now? I stood up and walked to my window, looking out at the city lights. Now we find out what your parents are really made of. 2 weeks later, Annabelle called me at midnight, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. "He threw me out!" she gasped between tears. "Isaiah threw me out. I'm sitting in my car in a parking lot and I have nowhere to go." I sat up in bed, instantly awake. "What happened?" "He found out I've been selling my jewelry to help Mom and Dad with the payment. He said I betrayed him, that I chose my family over him." Her voice cracked. "He changed the locks, Viv. He changed the locks and put my stuff on the lawn." "Where are you now?" "Outside a 7-Eleven. I don't know what to do. I called Mom and Dad, but they can't help. They're barely scraping together money for your payment." I looked at my clock. "Come over." "Really?" "Yeah. Come over." An hour later, Annabelle stood in my doorway with 2 suitcases and red-rimmed eyes. She looked like I must have looked 10 years ago, lost, desperate, and completely broken. "Thank you," she whispered as I let her in. "The couch pulls out." I remember I made tea while she sat at my kitchen table, staring at her hands. "How much jewelry did you sell?" "Everything except my wedding ring, even that ugly tennis bracelet Isaiah's mother gave me." She laughed bitterly. "Got $800 for it." "That's not enough for the payment." "I know. Mom's been selling things too. Dad's golf clubs, some of her china. They're still short about $1,500. I set a mug in front of her. "What did they say when you told them you were helping?" "They cried. Both of them. Said they couldn't ask me to sacrifice for their mistakes." She looked up at me. "They know what they did to you was wrong, Viv. They really do. Knowing and doing something about it are different things. They want to make it right. By paying back the loan they agreed to. By telling you the truth. About everything." I sat down across from her. "What truth?" Annabelle wrapped her hands around her mug like she was trying to warm herself from the inside out. "The wedding fund wasn't the only money they took from you." "What do you mean?" "Your college fund, the one Grandma left you when she died." Annabelle's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "They use that too." The room went silent, except for the hum of my refrigerator. "How much?" $25,000. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. $25,000 that was specifically left to me for my education? They said they'd pay it back after the wedding, but then Dad's business started struggling, and Mom got sick that one year, and there were always other expenses. So, they stole from me twice. They were going to tell you, but you were so angry about the wedding fund, and then you stopped talking to them. I stood up and walked to my window, staring out at the city. $25,000. Enough to have finished college without student loans. Enough to have had a real safety net when I got evicted. "Is there anything else?" I asked without turning around. "The house." "What about it? It's not just the mortgage they're behind on. They took out a second mortgage 3 years ago, and a home equity loan last year." Annabelle's voice was getting smaller. "They owe almost $400,000 total." I turned around. $400,000! They've been living beyond their means for years. The cars, the vacations, Mom's shopping. They kept borrowing against the house. So, even if they make the payments on my loan, they're still drowning. I sat back down, processing this information. My parents weren't just in temporary trouble. They were completely financially ruined, and they'd been lying about the extent of it. Why are you telling me this now? Because I can't lie anymore. Because sitting in that parking lot tonight, I realized what you must have felt like. Completely alone, with nowhere to turn. She wiped her eyes. And because they're planning to ask you for more money. More money. They think if they can just get through this payment, they can convince you to refinance the whole thing. Lower interest, longer terms. They think you'll cave because you're family. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. They think I'll cave. Mom keeps saying, "She's our daughter. She won't really let us lose the house." And what do you think? Annabelle looked at me for a long moment. I think they're about to find out that actions have consequences, just like I did tonight. My phone rang. Margaret's name appeared on the screen. "Don't answer it," Annabelle said quickly. "Why?" "Because they're calling to tell you Dad had chest pains tonight. They're at the hospital." I stared at the phone as it continued ringing. "Is he okay?" "He's fine. The doctor said it was stress and anxiety, but Mom's going to use it to guilt you into helping more." The phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again. "She's going to say he could have died from the stress of your loan terms," Annabelle continued. "She's going to blame you for his health problems." I looked at my sister, really looked at her, sitting in my kitchen at 2 a.m, homeless and broke, finally understanding what I'd been through. "And what do you think I should do?" "I think," Annabelle said slowly, "that you should let it ring." The phone fell silent. "They made their choices," she continued. "Now they get to live with them, just like we both did." I nodded and turned off my phone. "Welcome to the couch, Annabelle." "Thanks for letting me crash." "That's what family does," I said. "Real family." The call came from Lucas on a Tuesday morning, exactly 31 days after my parents had signed the contract. "They missed the payment," he said without preamble. I was in my office, reviewing quarterly reports. "By how much?" "All of it. They didn't pay a single dollar." I set down my pen. "Any communication?" "Margaret left 17 voicemails on my office line. She wants to discuss options." "What kind of options?" "The kind where you forgive the debt and pretend this never happened." Through my office window, I could see the city bustling below, people going to work, living their lives, paying their bills. "Initiate foreclosure proceedings." "Vivian, are you sure? Once I file these papers..." "I'm sure. There's no going back from this." "There was no going back 10 years ago either." That afternoon, Margaret showed up at my office. My assistant tried to stop her, but she pushed past and burst through my door like a woman possessed. "How could you?" she screamed. "How could you do this to your own parents?" I looked up calmly from my computer. "Do what?" "Foreclose on us. We're your family. You missed your payment." "By 1 day. 1 day, Vivian. The contract was very clear. No late payments accepted." Margaret collapsed into the chair across from my desk, sobbing. "Your father is in the hospital again. The stress is killing him. Literally killing him." "Then he should have made the payment." "We tried. We sold everything we could, but it wasn't enough." "How much were you short?" $1,500. She looked up at me with desperate eyes. $1,500, and you're going to take our home? You agreed to the terms. We had no choice. There's always a choice, Mom. You taught me that. Margaret wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara. Please, sweetheart. Please, I'm begging you. We'll get the money somehow. Give us 1 more week. No. 1 more day. No. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. You're really going to do this. You're really going to make us homeless. I'm enforcing a legal contract that you signed. We're your parents, and I was your daughter. I stood up and walked around my desk. Where was this desperation when I was facing eviction? Where were these tears when I was sleeping on couches? That was different. How? I leaned against my desk. How was it different? You were young. You could start over. And you can't? Margaret's face crumpled. We're too old. We have nowhere to go. Lindsay's couch is probably available. This isn't funny. It's not supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be justice. The door opened and Annabelle walked in. She'd been staying with me for 2 weeks, sleeping on my couch, looking for work during the day. Mom? She looked between us. What are you doing here? Your sister is destroying our family, Margaret said, pointing at me. She's taking our home. She's enforcing a contract you signed, Annabelle said quietly. Margaret's mouth fell open. You're taking her side. I'm not taking anyone's side. I'm stating facts. After everything we've done for you. Like what? Annabelle's voice was getting stronger. Like using the money Grandma left for Vivian's education to pay for my wedding? Like lying to both of us about it for 10 years? We were protecting you. You were protecting yourselves. Margaret turned back to me. Fine. Fine. You want to punish us? You want revenge? Take the house, but don't expect us to forgive you for this. I don't. Don't expect us to welcome you back into this family. I won't. Don't expect us to be there when you need us. I almost laughed. When have you ever been there when I needed you? Margaret stood up, her face red with rage and tears. You'll regret this, Vivian. Someday you'll need family and you'll have no one. I have family, I said, looking at Annabelle. I have people who actually care about me. She's not your real family. She's more family than you've ever been. Margaret stormed toward the door, then stopped. Your father might not survive this. If he dies, it's on you. No, Mom. If he dies, it's on the choices you both made. The same choices that nearly killed me 10 years ago. She slammed the door so hard, my diplomas rattled on the wall. Annabelle sat down in the chair Margaret had vacated. Are you okay? I'm fine. That was brutal. It was necessary. The foreclosure goes through. Tomorrow morning, Lucas is filing the papers at 9 a.m. Annabelle nodded slowly. They'll hate you forever. They already did. They just hid it better. What about the extended family? The cousins, aunts, uncles? What about them? They didn't care when I was homeless. Why should I care what they think now? You won't have anyone left. I looked at her, sitting there. My sister, who'd lost everything, who'd finally understood what I'd been through, who'd chosen to stand with me instead of against me. I'll have you. Yeah, she said, smiling through her tears. You'll have me. And Lindsay, and Lucas. Your chosen family. The only family that matters. My phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. Papers filed. It's done. I showed Annabelle the message. How do you feel? She asked. I looked out my window at the city below, at all the people living their lives, making their choices, dealing with the consequences. Free. The house sold at auction 3 weeks after the foreclosure went through. I didn't attend, but Lucas did. He called me afterward with the details. Sold for $210,000, he said. After paying off their mortgages and your loan, there's about $15,000 left. Send it to them. You sure? Legally, you could keep it as additional interest. Send it to them. I was standing in my parents' old driveway, keys in my hand. The new owners had agreed to let me walk through one last time before they started renovations. Why are you there? Lucas asked. Closure, I guess. The front door opened easily. The house was empty now, echoing with every footstep. I walked through the rooms where I'd grown up, where I'd learned to ride a bike in the hallway, where I'd done homework at that kitchen table. In my old bedroom, there were still marks on the wall where my posters had hung. The window overlooked the backyard where Dad had taught me to throw a baseball, back when he still had time for things like that. My phone rang. Lindsay. How's it going? She asked. Strange. It's just a house now. Good or bad strange? Just strange. I walked downstairs to the kitchen, to that table where everything had started and ended. Someone had left a note there, folded in half with my name on it. Hang on, Lindsay. I opened the note. Vivian. We came by to get the last of our things. I wanted to leave this for you. I know you probably won't read it, but I had to try. We were wrong about everything. We failed you as parents, and we failed ourselves as people. The money doesn't matter anymore. The house doesn't matter. What matters is that we lost our daughter. And it's our fault. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that we know. Mom. What is it? Lindsay asked. A letter from Margaret. What's it say? I read it to her. Wow. How do you feel? I folded the letter and put it in my pocket. Empty. Empty bad or empty good? Just empty. I walked out of the house and locked the door behind me. As I was getting in my car, another car pulled up. Annabelle got out, looking nervous. I thought I might find you here, she said. How'd the job interview go? I got it. Assistant manager at that boutique downtown. It's not much, but it's a start. It's something. We stood there looking at the house together. I keep expecting to see Mom's car in the driveway, Annabelle said. Where are they staying? Aunt Carol's, in her basement. Annabelle kicked at a pebble. Dad's not speaking to anyone. Mom cries a lot. I'm sorry. Are you? I thought about it. I'm sorry they're in pain. I'm not sorry they're facing consequences. Fair enough. A moving truck pulled up, and workers started unloading furniture for the new owners. A young couple with a toddler supervised, the woman pointing excitedly at different rooms through the windows. They look happy, Annabelle said. They look hopeful. Same thing, sometimes. We watched them for a few minutes. The little boy ran around the front yard, laughing as his parents chased him. The house would have children's laughter in it again. I have something to tell you, Annabelle said. What? Isaiah wants me back. I looked at her. And? I told him no. Really? Really? I'd rather sleep on your couch forever than go back to being his trophy wife. You won't be on my couch forever. I know, but even if I was, it would be better than being with someone who doesn't see me as a person. The young family was walking around the house now, the father lifting his son to look through windows. The mother was taking pictures, probably to send to relatives. They don't know what happened here, I said. Does it matter? No, it's their house now, their story. My phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. Dinner tonight? Lindsay's cooking. I showed Annabel the message. Want to come? To your chosen family dinner? Yeah. I'd like that. We got in our cars and drove away from the house where we'd grown up, where we'd learned that love was conditional and family was complicated. Behind us, the new family was already making plans, already building their own story in those rooms. At dinner, Lindsay made her famous lasagna, while Lucas told terrible lawyer jokes. Annabel fit in easily, laughing at the right moments, helping clear dishes without being asked. So, what's next? Lindsay asked as we sat around her table. Next? For you. Now that this is all over. I looked around the table at these people who'd chosen to be in my life, who'd stood by me when my blood family hadn't, who'd celebrated my successes and supported me through my failures. I don't know, I said, but whatever it is, I won't be doing it alone. Damn right you won't, Lindsay said, raising her wine glass. To chosen family, Lucas added. To second chances, Annabel said quietly. To consequences, I said, and we all drank. Outside, the city hummed with life. People were making choices, facing results, building families of their own design. Some would be blood, some would be chosen, all would be real. I'd gotten my revenge. I'd seen justice served. I'd watched my parents learn what I'd learned 10 years ago about being abandoned by the people who were supposed to love you most. But sitting there with Lindsay and Lucas and Annabel, I realized something else. The best revenge wasn't destroying my parents' life. It was building my own,